secrecy has surrounded a media visit to Queensland's first licensed cannabis farm, which is nearing completion on the Sunshine Coast. The first medicinal cannabis mother plants are expected to be imported from Israel within a month, with manufacturing scheduled to begin within the first half of this year, to supply 5,000 Australian patients. Journalists were required to sign non-disclosure agreements, promising not to reveal the location of the multi-million-dollar facility, before MediFarm director Adam Benjamin led a convoy to the high-security site. At the end of a rural road, high-security fences topped with barbed wire surrounded a large greenhouse that reporters were not allowed to enter. I guess one of the reasons the licensing authority, the Office of Drug Control through Federal Health, like what we proposed and awarded our licenses is everything's co-located, Mr. Benjamin said. We cultivate, we produce, we manufacture, we bottle and then we distribute on site, which I think for accountability is very important. The licensing authority has the right to knock on our doors any time of the day they like and come and inspect, and the buck stops with us. Adam Benjamin and Ted O'Brien in front of one of two vaults where the medicinal cannabis will be stored. Biometric scanning for workers. When workers arrive at the compound, they will be identified by fingerprint scanning, and enter through a steel turnstile. They get changed. They then go off to their separate sections, which are again all controlled by biometric fingerprint scanning for access, Mr. Benjamin said. Federal member for Fairfax Ted O'Brien said strict controls of the supply chain would be critical to the government's aspirations to make Australia the #1 world player in medicinal cannabis. Last week, Federal Health Minister Greg Hunt announced changes to regulations that would allow for medicinal cannabis exports, capitalizing on what the government estimated would be a $70 billion industry by 2025. Workers will have their fingerprints scanned before being allowed to access the turnstile to the MediFarm facility. We need to get approvals. The Global Narcotics Control Board has given a big tick to the framework that's being adopted in Australia, Mr. O'Brien said. That can only stay if we have the players who manufacture this product doing exactly what MediFarm is doing. It's about building a new industry, and that's why it's so critical that this company and others comply. A lot of the countries that are currently active are exploring the opportunity of imports but also exports themselves. You've got multiple states, particularly in the US, that are very active. Canada's coming on stream. Work continues on the change room at the MediFarm site. Different strains for different conditions. MediFarm is one of just 4 licensed medicinal cannabis farms to gain approval in Australia. The company has an exclusive international intellectual property partnership with Israeli-based company Tikkun Olam, which pioneered world production 12 years ago. Different strains are grown to treat different medical conditions. 95% of the medicines that we produce have no psychoactive ingredients, so although security measures are in place, we're not talking about what people normally would come and try and take, Mr. Benjamin said. MediFarm director Adam Benjamin outside the razor wire protecting the greenhouse. The Schedule 8 pharmaceutical medicine has gained federal approval to treat conditions including cancer-related pain, nausea and vomiting, multiple sclerosis and epilepsy, and for use in palliative care. But bottlenecks remain to doctors prescribing the controversial treatment. Everything will be quality tested on site. We will then validate it off-site at the University of the Sunshine Coast, Mr. Benjamin said. MediFarm says security is paramount for its secret site on the Sunshine Coast. 2 large steel vaults have been craned onto the site. One will be used to store the harvested, dried raw product. It's a very heavy steel safe door, and then when it's needed for extraction purposes it goes through to the laboratory, becomes oil, gets tested and then all the finished product goes off into the second vault door, Mr. Benjamin said. It's fireproof to what's called 90 to 90, which means you can have a blazing inferno outside and nothing inside will get touched for 90 minutes at the very least, which obviously gives you more than enough time to work on anything that may have happened. Not just the perimeter security, but also the safety and security on site is paramount.